Tejasvinavaditamastu Mahavitvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we continue our reading. We will be reading chapter 14, page 154. The organ of action. So we finished the reading of organs of knowledge. Now we're starting to know what is organs of action. There is a quote from Swami Vivekananda. Let us begin with that. You are creating this bondage all the time. How? By putting in your share. We are all making our own beds, forging our own chains. When the identifying ceases between this external object and myself, then I will be able to take my contribution off and this thing will disappear. So this is a quote-unquote a passage from Swami Vivekananda saying that until we withdraw from gratification of senses, we will continue to create bondage and suffering. Seeing and acting. Ramayana has the story of Sita who saw the golden deer. The deer attracted her. She said she wanted it. If Sita had simply seen the deer, there would have been no problems. She not only saw it, she said she wanted it. That led to the story of Ramayana. So, as long as you know it, it is less harmless, creates less bondage and suffering. But the moment you attach your ego and desire to attract it, to grab it, to have it, your action begins. The organs of action comes to play. And only then you are in the cycle of the pleasant and pain, and finally creating the bondage and suffering. Knowledge inspires will, and will inspires action. First we know, and then we act. That is, we see or hear, identify the sight or sound with our ego, and either like it or dislike it. If we like something, we want it. If we dislike it, we want that to go. Known as raga and dvesha. Raga and dvesha inspire the will to act. When we know there is an apple and that it can end our hunger, we go for it. So first is the knowledge. And once you have the knowledge, your mental, known as vasana, as a raga and dvesha, your action to have it or get rid of it, either way. But it needs the organs of action to function. The sense organs give us knowledge of the outer world. They tell us there are countless things in the world. When we know them, our ego begins to act. It either wants something or hates some of them. These lead us to use our organs of action. This is the beginning of our true involvement in the world. In other words, this is how you generate agami karma. We can know 1,000 things in a detached way, but the moment we say we want them and begin to act, we are bound. So knowing is one thing, but when you attach your desire to have it, to own it, your organs of action begins to play. And that brings you bondage and finally some suffering. The Bhagavad Gita therefore forewarns aspirants that the main problem is the senses and the mind. The organs of action are helpless machine in the hands of the mind. You see, you may have your arms, your legs, but if your mind do not give a direction or command to act, your arms and legs are just the limbs. They do not function. It is the signal, it is the command of your mind that makes your organ of action to behave, to act, to perform. Therefore, says the Bhagavad Gita, he or she who engages in selfless action by controlling the organs and the mind is a great one. But the other way around is bad. I will repeat it. But the organs of perception and the mind do all the mischiefs. Therefore, says the Bhagavad Gita, he or she who engages in selfless action by controlling the organs and the mind is great one. But other way around is bad, which means if your mind is in your control and therefore mind makes a decision of desiring and commanding your organs of action to behave, to act. But if you do not have a control over your mind, then your sense of knowledge will direct your mind and your action will begin. So sequence is the organs of knowledge leads you to command you your organs of action to perform. But for both, what is crucial is your vasana and your faculty of antakarna, known as antakarna, which is the combination of mind, memory, intellect, and ego. If you have presence of moment and if you are in position to control your antakarna, which is your vasana, you are in a position to be in commanding position, not to allow organs of action to act or perform without your awareness. That's exactly what it's saying. But the other way around is bad. One who appears to be sitting quietly, controlling the organ of action, but is engaged mentally in numerous actions is hypocrite. So you can physically be inactive, but if you mentally, emotionally engage in activity of fulfilling your desires, you are equally committing the same bondage and suffering. So it's very subtle. We have to be very, very, very aware that it is not just action, but activity physically, but even mentally, emotionally, you have to detached from gratification of senses. So the root problem is desire, born of ignorance. So the root of the problem, desire born of ignorance, has to be rooted out if we are to restrain the mind, the senses, and organ of actions. You understand? Let's repeat this. This is the significant statement. The root of the problem is desire born of ignorance. Desire born out of ignorance has to be rooted out if we are to restrain our mind, the senses, and the organs of actions. I would recommend this to be underlined because this is the bottom line of this paragraph, this passage. This section teaches us what the organ of actions are and how they function. As we saw the previous chapter, here too there is a mention of gods who rule over the organs of actions. This could have been the tradition which Vedantians have followed. So now is this sloka of the organs of action, page 156. The organ of speech, hands, feet, generative organ, and organ of excretion. These are the 5 organs of action. The presiding deities of these organs are fire, presides over speech; Indra presides over hands; Vishnu presides over feet; Death or Yama presides over the organ of excretion; and Prajapati presides over the organ of generation. The function of the organ of speech is talking. The function of the hands is grabbing things. Well, grabbing things means activity. Yeah, grabbing things, it's not just grabbing. Even if you push it things or pull it out, pull or push, which means grabbing and not grabbing. But both are equally activity of your hands. The function of feet is moving. The function of organ of excretion is to excrete. The function of the organ of generation is to enjoy. Karmidriya. The organs of action are 5 in number. These are, as stated above, hands, feet, organ of generation, organ of excretion, and the organ of speech. Where are the organs of action located? In the physical body? No. Though it appears that we have our organs of action in the body, they are not the true organs of action. They are just openings. The true organs of action are within, in the subtle body. It may surprise us, but it is absolutely true. The outer physical covering is just like a pillowcase, an inert support or instrument for the subtle body to act. Therefore, if a man is dumb, his organ of speech is there within, but is not functioning. Trees do not walk, but all the same, their organ of action called feet are there within. They are latent, that is all. So what it says is that you imagine a man, a person who is dumb. Yeah. So in other words, his physical body has the instrument of speech, but he cannot, his indriyas, which is in your subtle body, is not functioning, is not working. And that is how we call it dumb. So what is more important? More important is what is in our subtle body. Subtle body is the crucial part, and that actually decides on the perceptions, sense perceptions, or the gratification of senses. The physical form of our sense of knowledge or sense of action is just the instruments. How they are created. The organs of action are created along with the creation of the organs of knowledge. They are created by using the rajas or activity part of the 5 supreme elements. You remember, the subtle body is the result of 5 elements in their subtle form. We only can perceive the elements which are in gross form. But remember, like our individual body, even the cosmic body has the same layers. That means what we see and what we can perceive is the physical part of the cosmic body, which is Panch Mahabhutas. But these Panch Mahabhutas are born out of the 5 subtle elements. And so our body, the gross body that we can appear, we can see, is the result of Panch Mahabhuta, same 5 gross elements. But our subtle body is our root is out of the subtle 5 elements. Now remember, we spoke about 3 qualities. Sat, that means Satya, Rajas and Tamas. So this subtle body is the outcome of the Rajas part of 5 elements. Rajas part of 5 subtle elements. How they function? The mind sees and knows some object. The ego identifies itself with it, and the hand begins in adventure. There is the effort. And when everything goes well, the object is obtained. The power of function comes from pranas or life forces. The desire to function comes from the mind. Got it? You remember the 17 elements of subtle body, 17 aspects, 5 pranas of 5 pranas, 5 sense of knowledge, 5 sense of action, mind, and intellect. These are the 17 aspects of the subtle body. So here it says that the ego, like we said last chapter, we read the process of knowing. The mind sees and then knows some object. The ego identifies itself with it, and hand begins to adventure. So to continue the talking about the process of knowing, we understood that our instrument can identify as sense object, external object, through our physical form of knowledge or organ of knowledge. It is then referred through the organs of senses, sense of knowledge. It is then reflected onto the mind. Mind immediately refers it to the memory. Memory then takes the command from your intellect, and your ego is attached with that to say, this is flower or this is a tree. So that is the process of knowing. Now, then comes the command from your mind out of your vasanas of either to own it or have it or grab it, or something that you do not like or do not want, you want to avoid. But for both, you need organ of action. Now, here is the example to understand it. Suppose I see a sweet, I desire it, I get it. The impression of the sweetness, a pleasant sensation of eating it, and so on will remain as a latent impression known as vasana. The Vasana part goads me to do the same action again and again. So the Vasana is in the storage, is in the memory. And because of the Vasana, moment you see a sweet, it directs your mind to command your organ of action to eat again, which is your organ of action, eating. So once again, suppose I see a sweet, I desire it, I get it. The impression of sweetness, the pleasant sensation of eating it, and so on will remain as the latent impression, vasana. The vasana part goads me to do the same action again and again, while the samskara part of keeps track of all the emotions and other things involved in that action if I do it. These samskara lead me to take new birth, suffer in a new body, and also decide my life's path. So the organ of actions are the great links in the chain of birth. You see, in context of your karma theory, hear it how it works. Yeah? So important to understand. What is the difference of vasana and samskara? So vasana is nothing but an impression or memory of pleasant or painful experiences. It is storage of in your memory. Samskara is the combination of all that required to act upon it. So because of the vasana, you see an object of sweet. So that's the external object. Your eye sees it, sends out the signal to your mind. Mind refers it to the memory. Memory then will take a help of intellect to decide yes or no, have it or not have it. And then your ego is attached to it. And because of that, mind gives command to the organ of action to grab it. Now that's the cycle, that's how it completes. But that is born out of your vasana because your memory remembers and gives you command to have it again because of your vasana of eating sweet. But if you are in the present moment, which means if you are following your samskaras, what is the samskara? Samskara is the involvement of your intellect and mind and memory. And in that case, you can refrain, you can come, your mind can give a command to refrain from indulging into repeating of the vasana. Now, this is the crucial part. The moment you let your mind govern you, you continue creating new karmas. But the moment you follow the samskara, you can then refrain from creating agami karma because that requires presence of moment, awareness. So it's so vital. Let us read one more time. The vasana part goads me to do the same action again and again, while the samskara part keeps track of all the emotions and other things involved in that action. If I do it, these samskara lead me to take new birth. See, it's basically your actions create karma and it becomes your cause, and you have to come back to have the effect of that cause, yeah, which is nothing but a karmic account. Suffering new body also decide my lifespan. Now there are certain vasanas and certain uh, habits that can affect your lifespan. But if you are in awareness and follow your samskara, dharma, you can refrain from creating this desire first, because moment you are aware, you are not ignorant. And moment you are in present moment, you allow your samskara to decide that is this good for you or not. And in such case, you can avoid the gratification of senses. So here we end our chapter 14 because it's a small, we should continue to read this next one, the causal body, very important. It's also very small. I think we should be able to read as much as we can today. But before we start the next chapter, is what we read so far, is there any doubt? Is there anything that is not very clear about organs of action, Karmidriyas? As I said, remember to contemplate on the page 157 how they created and their function. Also page 155, the middle page. So the root of the problem is desire born of ignorance. That para is something you should.
Yes.
That's very significant.
So does this mean that we can have desires, but we have to be mindful of them? If we are mindful or aware of them and we are not attached to them, we know that if we desire something, it is out of attachment. But if we have an awareness about it, probably it'll.
It is not all that simple, because when you said desire, the bottom line is every desire will bring you one way or the other bondage and suffering, whether it is a good desire or a not good desire. Any desire, positive or negative.
Right.
Every desire has its effect.
So in that case, all the shopping that we do is coming out of the desires.
Of course.
I do
And
not
that,
like this thing, so I want to change it. So let me buy a new one.
yeah. So
This is a desire.
Yeah. So very important that at home you feel like buying new cushion covers, for example. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
That's example. Now that is your desire. That desire is born out of what? Number one, you have to be very aware of it. Either the cushion covers are so poor condition, torn, faded, not usable, and therefore needs replacement. Or is it just that you are tired of looking at it for so long and you want some change? Or because you visited your friend's house and you saw some beautiful covers and you like to change yours. So the desire are born out of various reasons.
Yes.
Now, some of the desires are genuine. Like if it is torn, damaged, and worn out completely, fair enough, it requires change. So get the replacement. You see, ultimately, spiritually speaking, the soul changes our body. Why? The soul realizes that this body is not helpful for evolution. So it drops the body and picks the new body, fresh new one. Same way, if that desire of changing the cushion cover is based on the real necessity, then do it. Because it is required. You have no great attachment on it. It's just that you are changing. But if the desire is born out of your raga dvesha, which is likes and dislikes, then it brings some amount of, it may be very subtle, but it definitely brings some amount of bondage. And every bondage has the suffering, ultimately. May not be immediately, may not be very, um, apparent. It could be very subtle, but definitely every bondage has the suffering. And that is why first thing about spirituality is to reduce the bondage or attachment. Desires and attachments. These are the two things in spirituality try to minimize, if not completely avoid.
So the
You
issue
see, now
is,
sorry?
I said the issue over here is to differentiate between wants and needs.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, ultimately that's how it is. You can have n number of wants, but your need not be so great. It can be, remember our prayer every day. Thank you for giving me everything. Is to acknowledge that I have all that I need. I may not have all that I want, but certainly I have all that I need. And we are all blessed. We all have what really
more than we need.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. So anything more than what we have is born out of the same likes and dislikes, raga and dvesha. And likes and dislikes based on your thirst, your comparing with your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, that he has so and so car and I should buy the new car, or he has this and that. That is your need, wants. This is the purpose of satsang, that it's not just reading any passage or a book, but how literally it affects our day-to-day life. Or is it something that is affecting us? Is it something that we can be aware of? If we are not aware, we continue doing what we are doing. So the first thing is to have this information, convert that into knowledge, contemplate, get the clarity, and then realize, is it possible for me to be aware of all this and try to follow it, practice it? That's the essence of this reading. It's not just increasing our amount of knowledge that we all possess, but to really contemplate and make a judgment ourselves whether it is possible for us individually.
Acharya, difference between want and need is very clear and discerning. Need and deserve, where does that come in? Where does that stand?
Yeah. Moment your needs are covered, your desires are dropped. Moment your desires are dropped, you are in a greater position as a deserving person. Now, when I say deserving person, deserving not what we are talking or thinking about materialistic point of view, but we deserve to evolve spiritually. Yeah. How do you qualify yourself? You remember when we were reading the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there was this, out of 8 of his principles, there is one called Pratyahara. Yeah? Pratyahara is withdrawal. What is withdrawal? Withdrawal of gratification of senses. In other words, to slowly but surely reduce your desires and attachment. And that makes you deserving person. You deserve to enhance your spiritual awareness or ancient wisdom. That is, and remember, we all know, every human being, not only us, however poor, however a critical condition person is, basic needs are covered. We may find that someone is struggling to find a food, but be thankful he's still alive until he's dead. And to be alive itself is the subject of gratitude. Yeah. So it's not always that you have X amount of food and therefore you survive, or food or water or whatever. So our needs are always covered. Always. It's a fine line. The need becomes your wants, or wants becomes your need. So, but once you reduce your wants, be happy with your needs, acknowledge it, be grateful all the time for it, all the time. Grateful, gratitude makes you deserving person. For me, Bhagavad Gita, as everybody knows, has got so much of wisdom, so much of it's treasure of all kind of higher knowledge. But when people talk so many things about it, so many learned people, but ultimately we all have to practice it in life. And for me, the most important part so far is just simple thing as do whatever that you have to do to the best of your ability without expecting the outcome or a reward or a fruit of it. And whatever reward that you get, accept it without claiming the doership.
Wow.
Very easy. If I am spending time with my friends here with you all, I'm not doing not for you, I'm doing for myself because I love to do it. And I feel I am lucky to share thoughts. And I do the best of my ability, but I do not expect rewards or I do not expect any appreciation. If appreciation comes, I take it as a prasad. Move on. Just move on. Yeah. So I think every one of us should pick up one little lesson, one little wisdom. But most important is to follow it in life. Gaining knowledge without practicing it has no meaning. I remember one time when the Osho was alive and he was in his ashram in Pune, and I had a friend who was in that ashram, and I got lucky to visit, and we had some satsang. There was some incident where a parent came to ask Osho to advise the son, or I don't remember, son or daughter, who was very fond of eating sweet. And so it says, if you can advise my child to stop eating sweet in the excess, moderate is okay, moderation. And Osho said, give me 1 week and come. And after 1 week, he said all what he wanted to say. And it worked. So the parent asked, this thing you could have said on the very first day, why didn't you say? Said, yes, I could have said it and your child would have followed it. I know it. But I couldn't have said because I was also partly like your child. I had not the sweet, but I had something else that I was attached to. Unless I drop that attachment, I am in no position to advise your son or your child. So likewise, I think it's a matter of being aware of what your own journey, and we all pick up so many good wisdom in our day-to-day life, which we do not think about. You meet somebody and you may get some idea, or you may get some information or knowledge, and if you contemplate, it could be very worthwhile to follow it yourself. It's not always the great sages and saints. There are people who are born, all of us are born with certain virtues. It's just that you have to identify and contemplate. There was a reason when I had mentioned to you to pour cold water on your feet before satsang or before yoga. And after yoga or satsang, try to drink warm water down. These are very simple, subtle things. But at long run, this can have a very profound effect on us. It's not just physical effect, even mentally. If you are in that moment, when you pour a water, if it is just a robotic action, just mechanically let the water fall on you, then nothing will happen. But if you take a moment and feel when the water touches your skin on your feet, feel it. Just takes few seconds. Feel it and close your eyes and let that feeling on your water sensation on your feet. That affects not only physically, but even your mentally. And this is something that I'm very sure, because it's been my personal experience. So I am very sure about it. All these small things. It's always the small things that lead us to gain wisdom, as what we are reading now. But if we jump on to straight on this without having preliminary simple things in our lifestyle, then it could be a little hard to digest. It's like doing yoga asana on the very first day, start doing sirsasana without doing sarvangasana. So it could be challenging. By the way, we have still not come to a point where we can do the Shishasans and Mayurasans and Bakasans and stuff like that, which we will do. So it's good. We will take up the chapter 15 next day, next class, the causal body. So you remember the Tattvabodha, the objective is to know that we may have different bodies, yeah, the gross body, subtle body, and causal body. But in and through all these three bodies, there is something that is permanent, that is eternal, and that's consciousness. That's what it will talk. So far we have spoken about the gross body, subtle body. Now we are moving to the causal body. After causal body, it will talk about the three state of mind, which means when you are awake, when you are in deep sleep, and when you are dreaming. Again, in those three state of mind, there is something common, which is always there. Again, that is a consciousness. So it is objective is to prove that it is always the consciousness that is the center point. So I guess we have one more week before we have to take a break because I will not be available. And my plan is to come to a point where we should close by doing maybe Surya Namaskar and then leave you so that you can practice Surya Namaskar till I come back. All right, so if there is nothing more to share or ask, then let us conclude by offering the prayer. Oh. Asato ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink.
Thank you, God.
Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thanks, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we deserve. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Acharya ji.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Wish you have a
Acharya
nice
ji.
weekend and see you on Monday.
You should the same, Acharya ji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya.